today's stage. We've been very lucky to actually open the final day at Salon International today. My name's Josh, and to my right is Vicky. We're going to be working on some styles that are actually inspired by catwalk styles that have come from this season. So we're looking at a lot of braids, but kind of stretching them to a style that is unachievable maybe by yourself. We're looking at avant-garde, plaits and braiding. For myself, I'm going to be looking at working from 2 ponytails I've already placed in. I've then weaved into the hair this long extension piece. So I've already pre-plaited, you'll see me plait these in just a second. This is all going to get put up and placed, so you kind of get 2 kind of horn shapes that will come into the very nape of the neck. And I've got another piece which I've already pre-plaited, I've just pulled out a little bit, so it just adds a little bit of texture. I'm just going to pass to Vicky. I think she believes she's just starting her plait, so she can talk you through where she's got her inspiration.
Morning everyone. So, like Josh said, our inspiration is a lot from the catwalks, like wearable things that you can do yourself as well. So with Sophie's hair today, I've already put this scalp plait in, and what we've done is plaited in a piece of wire as I go, so that I'm only adding in hair from one side, so it comes out from the head, and then you can bend it to whatever shape you want. And then we've just added in some pieces at the back to give us the extra length. And what I've got here is 2 fishtail plaits and a normal plait in the middle, and then woven together with that nice sort of texture at the bottom. And I'm just going to show how I've done this plait by doing the second one on the other side, weaving the wire in as I go. Fingers crossed it goes well for me today.
I'm sure it will, Vicky. Okay, so I've just started my plait. This is what I've recreated on the other 3. It's just a simple 3-stem plait. I'm just going to weave this all the way down to the end. But on the very end, just because I want to lose the kind of loose ends, I've bent them back on themselves, so it almost makes a bobble, and then with a clear elastic secured that. And what I'm going to do in a second, once I've created all of my plaits, is start to twist them until they start to buckle back on themselves. When they buckle, you get this really nice shape that just coils. And that way I can just use large pins to place those into themselves, and we'll just create a beautiful shape. It's just going to come from quite smaller through the front and larger through the back. Now I took a lot of my inspiration for this from shows. I did a show with TG from Mark Fast, and this was just a full head of braids with some pieces that were left down, so I've just decided that I'm going to take it in a new direction, maybe show a bit more scalp or a little bit more of a flatter area through the centre and through the sides, and just work this up through the top. Now I'm braiding her hair into this, so we need to keep it nice and tight. And I will seal it with these GHDs just down at the bottom, just to make sure that none of my ends become too loose.
So I'm just putting my piece of wire in now. This is where a bit of bending out of the way goes on, to try and not poke myself in the eye. But this just makes it more flexible. When we were having a practice, we tried putting it in afterwards, but it just kind of pulls the hair too much. So by putting it in as you go along, you just get that flexibility and the firmness of the plait without ruining the plait. If it goes well for me.
As I'm just coming to the end of this plait, as you see it's extremely long and lots of hair. It's great to play with. And as I work towards the end, I'm just going to split this across. I've had to colour match the hair. Obviously, with Laura's hair, she actually has dyed ends. So her root area is quite dark, but towards her ends is a bit lighter. So I kind of wanted to keep that contrast when it came to adding my hairpiece in. But I also wanted to link it so that it didn't look too alien to the hair. So we've got some of her natural brown in here, as well as this slightly lighter golden colour. And when you see this a little bit later on when we put this all up, it just gives a fantastic effect. It looks a little bit more natural, obviously we know it isn't. Okay, so this is just where I'm going to coil my ends up, create a little ball, just a clear elastic, just to secure everything, and then we get to have some fun by putting all of these plaits up on the head. Okay, so like I said earlier, it's just about coiling, so you're just twisting. You can see after a little while, the water starts to buckle back on itself. And so when that happens, I can start to build up to the head. It's really quick. And this is just the essence of the style. It's just visually checking where you want everything to be placed. and then where I want my height. So I want my height to be created around that bobble. You see that's just started there. Just a large pin. I'm going to push it out and down. And that's going to secure the majority of our hair in. And just a few grips just across the base, just to keep everything in place. So this is just going underneath, keep that nice and hidden. So you see that?
Okay, so I'm just working my plait down through to the end now. It's quite tricky to bend the wire in as you go, but once you get further down, it's much easier, you get much better flow with it, and then it makes it much more flexible to move around, so I can flatten these bits in afterwards, but it just gives me the shape that I want through here, and makes it able to stand out without having to try and push grips in afterwards, which we did try as well, but it just didn't want to hold in properly into the shape that we wanted. So we found that by pushing the wire in first, it gave us a much better shape, and it's much more stable to work with as well. Just so.
Okay, so as the silhouette, you can see we're starting to just build this up, create some height just towards the top of the head. So it's all about thinking about your silhouette, your placement, where you want to see the majority of the shape. And then, as I said earlier, I'm just going to bring this so it starts to meet towards the centre. And then the other side will come in to match that.
So I'm just gripping this into place now, and then what I'll do is carry on the plait down through here, adding my wire into this fishtail, so that you just get the mixture of the textures all together. And I like how you've got the sleekness through the top there, working with the different texture as well, so you get the more rougher feel through the back. And I like the play with the two different textures together. I think it's quite nice, and it's quite something that it is something that someone could do themselves. It's really wearable, maybe not this big at home.